I'm Rick from Carthage Classic Cars. What we have in the shop is our next project. As you can see, it's another Nova. I know we've done Novas in the past. This is a 69 Nova. It needs a lot of work, kind of like the rest of them in the shop. What we're gonna do on this video series, we're gonna fast track most of the Nova just to show you how we build the cars. You've seen it in the past. We're not gonna focus on certain things. We're not gonna spend a lot of time prepping the parts. It's mostly gonna be the assembly of the car. So these videos should be really short on the body part. We are gonna try to really focus in because this Nova, like a lot of the Novas, we've done everything from stock build Novas where, you know, non-mini tub, where the owner's gonna bring it to almost like it would have been in, you know, 69 like this car, 70 like some others, or we've done completely pretty much aftermarket suspension. We are having a Nova in the shop come recently that we built in the past that we're putting a full aftermarket chassis under. So we might show some highlights on that. This one is going to be more of the Ride Tech suspension. It's going to be an LS swap on this Nova. We do have to figure out some rack and pinion steering stuff with some headers, and it's going to be a 6-speed manual, so I believe we have to do major tunnel modification. So like I said, we'll focus in on that. Walk around this car, like I said, it's a pretty ragged Nova. The owner bought it in the intention of replacing almost every panel on this car. Saying that, I know the rear frame rails I think are in pretty good shape. Of course, the blaster is going to show us that when we hit that point, but obviously the roof has major dents in it. There's filler on a lot of the quarter panels. You could see the rear trunk floor is completely rusted out, along with the floor pans. There's tons of rust in them. We already have the parts to replace that stuff. Same thing with the doors. They're dented. There's rust on them, and there's filler on them, so they will be replaced. On this car will get 70 Nova front end defenders, just what the owner wanted. And so we're, like I said, we build them how the owners want. So that's a quick overview of the car. You can see it's already on the lift. The first thing we're going to end up doing, we are going to pull the front end on this car. We're going to pull the motor, and more than likely, we're going to pull the whole front subframe out of the car. The reason being, the body mounts are completely gone on this car. So everything, there's just 2x4s holding where the body mounts would have been. The owner does have, you could see the Ride Tech suspension bolted in place loosely, so we'll carefully unbolt that, put into storage. The main thing is to focus on building the body first and then do the aftermarket stuff. Obviously, like you've seen the last Nova we built, there are certain things that we will do in the process knowing if it's going to be easier. But I believe with this Ride Tech stuff, a lot of stuff will be easier installed after the car is complete. So that's a quick walk around on the project and what we have. Let's take a look at the frame jig. If you haven't seen other videos of ours, this is how we build them. So this is our Nova jig platform. It's built off some straight Novas. Now saying that, with this car, it's not wrecked, and our last car with the aftermarket frame rails, our 70 Nova we built, we had a bunch of issues with the rear 4 frame rails where we slid everything forward. Saying that, there's a good chance that I might have to cut these off and re-drig off what is a straight car. Like I said, we have modified these before. I'm confident that that car's straight. We could take some measurements after we get on the frame table and just double check everything. We will probably put the rear piece, which we did not have on the last car. This piece will go right here. That's gonna be for the rear cross rail. Will sit right on here if everything works good. Like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And actually this one on the last car might have to be lifted up. I have changed a lot of my jigs around recently and raised them up higher versus the past jigs, just because it's more comfortable on me. We have this bar that was removed on the last Nova. That will go right here. And what that will be for, we removed this on the last car for the Detroit Speed track bar is where that got in the way. So that will be put on after we get the car on there. Like I said, the front end, the front firewall mounts will sit right here. This is where the rear clip would sit. We're not worried about it right now, knowing that the rear clip's gonna come off before we put the car on there. So we're just make sure everything kind of fits on this jig. We'll tack it on, see where we're at, double check our measurements, and take it from there. Now we got it, let me just walk you around. This is the last Nova that we built. You can see it's sitting on 4 wheels and tires. This was a version of what that car is going to look like. This car received more parts than what that one did. We still have a lot more work to do. It needs a bunch of gapping. Now that it's on its wheels and tires, now's the way to do it. These are not the wheels and tires that the owner is going to be using. We got a factory set off the Monte Carlo in the shop. The owner is nice enough to let us borrow. And the front set is, I want to give a shout out to Dennis for running these tires over on his build because we didn't have a set of 18s that you need to run for these Detroit Speed front end kits. So thank you for him for doing that. But the great thing was, when the owner came by with that car, this car was close to this condition. I could sit there, show him a completed project. It's great when we can do that and say, this is what your car can look like. These are the issues we're having with the car, which I'm pretty open on the YouTube channel, the issues we do run into with these aftermarket panels. So he knows what we need to work on, where we're going to spend the time, and what the final product could look like. Again, we are going to dial in this car a little bit better, but it's a whole lot better to sit there and be able to open the doors on one of these cars, kind of see how everything's tight, feel and touch the car, versus just sitting there and see it on the video. So, like I said, if you haven't seen it, check out this car. We're going to start wrapping up this video series. Probably this car will be almost wrapped up by the time this intro comes out on this Nova, because we're a little ahead of ourselves on where we put the videos out. But let's get to stripping that car. Like I said, we're going to get everything gutted on it first and then drop the body directly on the frame jig. And like I said, we're going to just fast pace it. We'll do a bunch of short videos on this car. Not a lot of talking, unlike the intro right now. And we'll just get to work, and I'll focus in on certain things that we want to, I just want to get the point across, and we'll show you what that 1969 Nova is going to look like, hopefully in a few videos. So stay tuned. Let's get to stripping it.
We're going to start off the process on the 69 Nova, like I said, on stripping the external body sheet metal on the car. This is going to make removing the engine, the whole front clip, and the suspension a lot easier. Saying that, the motor and everything in this car are not really tightened down. Everything is loosely put in. The owner just added that for transport. So everything is in the car and is roughly bolted in, but as you saw on the intro, has a lot of major fitment issues, where it's going to go. So I have a feeling we're going to have to do a lot of fabrication and some moving and a lot of measuring to figure out, to get all these different kits working together, i.e. the rack and pinion, the LS conversion, there's a different transmission mount on there. So all this stuff made by different companies, even when we go with the same company, sometimes it seems like we have some issues and we have to mock everything up pre-paint. You want to do it before you go into paint, because the worst thing to do is have everything painted looking show quality and then come to find out you need to do major fabrication on the car. As Chase and I are taking apart the front end of this Nova, you could tell really most of this stuff has not been off this car in quite some time. Everything's really rusted. We are snapping a few bolts here or there. The hood hinges are really rough to get out of this car. Not a huge deal. We just, some things you need to expect that when we take these cars apart, that we are going to break some bolts. The good thing about this car is most of the stuff is going to be replaced, so it's not a huge deal. Which, like I said, it's getting new fenders, it's getting a new hood, there's going to be a bunch of new parts. So really, as we're pulling these apart, there's been no real damage that we're doing that's going to affect the build process of this Nova. I am actually really happy that the radiator support on this car looks like it's in really good usable condition. A lot of times with the aftermarket, we seem to have a bunch of issues with that. So we're able to keep that part. We'll sandblast it and we'll prep it, and we'll show that on a future video on the installation. Right now, we're going to turn our attention to removing the steering rack in this Nova. So the steering rack is an aftermarket bolt-on kit that goes in the rear location behind the subframe itself, the cross member of the subframe. The problem with this, with the Novas, if you notice, with the clearance of the steering box, it's the same thing with the rack and pinion. How they're doing that with the rack and pinion on this kit, it just looks like the knuckle angle coming up, the U-joint angle is just so steep and it's making a sharp turn. So we have to really look at that and really try to dial it in. Also, the owner does want to run headers in this Nova, so we're gonna have some major clearance issues with the steering shaft coming up with the headers itself. So we will address this down the road. Not super worried about right now. We are gonna turn our attention to the front suspension, which is not Ride Tech, it is Global West. So taking off the suspension right now, it's the same thing as the engine. The owner removed the factory original suspension just because there was no reason bringing parts along the way knowing that we're not going to need them, and he bolted on the Global West brand new front suspension that he's using. So we just unbolted all the components for that. We'll put them on the shelf, and again, we'll mock all those up when everything's done and get the car on its wheels and tires to verify everything works together before the chassis gets painted and all that. As you can see, we're going to bring in the shop crane and we're going to hook it around the subframe of this whole engine, transmission, and front clip of this Nova. Now we got the fenders and the hood removed. I feel this could be the easiest way to just hook up the whole front subframe and then pull it out of the car. Then what we'll do later down the road, we'll go ahead and take the motor and transmission off the subframe on the ground. Then we don't have to worry about that 6-speed getting in the way of and bumping against the firewall or the floor pan. So I feel like this could be the easiest way to go. Plus, right now the transmission cross member is barely on there, so what we'll end up doing, like I said, we gotta be careful with it, but the front motor mounts are bolted in. You could see how easy, once we lowered the car just to keep everything from tipping and all that, how easy it slides right out. You obviously saw we did have to cut one of the body mount bolts. They were so rusted that it kept spinning the cage nut, and like everything else on this car, everything is just completely rusted together. The good thing, like I said, we are not keeping a lot of the parts and really none of the old suspension pieces. So that includes everything that you're looking at right now with the rear end of this car. So to help us remove the 10 bolt in the back of this Nova, what we're going to do, I'm going to take the rear end dolly I have around the shop, just set the car right on the rear dolly mount, and then we're going to take the leaf spring mounts out with the U-bolts. We'll undo them, and you can see we can drop the car down and let the rear end come off the leaf springs. That's going to allow us to remove the shackle bolts, and then what I'll do, as Chase is taking the shackles off the frame rails, I'm going to go ahead and tackle the front mounts on this Nova. So a lot of times with those cage nuts up front, they are going to start stripping. We are able to get the passenger side out with no issues. But with the driver's side, what I had to do, I had to actually get a plasma in there because one of them was spinning. It's not a huge deal because I know we are going to remove the floor pan. So what's left on there, I'll just get through it from the inside after the floor pan comes off this car. We'll finish cutting that little bit of the clip out, and then it's not a huge deal, but you could see it coming out right now. And what we'll do, we got the leaf springs out, we can roll the rear end completely out of the car and finish tackling the rest of the body components. So the first thing that we're going to do is just remove the trunk here. It's just me, again, I don't have to worry about denting anything, damaging anything, so we could just take this trunk off. It might be good for someone else as the trunk's not completely rusted out, but it's got a lot of dents in it and everything else. And the owner and I talked about it and what it would take to fix this trunk, strip it down, and just can't have all the hassle with it. It's going to be easier and cheaper, I feel, in the long run to just buy a new aftermarket trunk. Plus, the rest of this car is obviously going to be all aftermarket, so we're not really worried about keeping the originality of this car. Same thing, the bumpers coming off this car, we might use this bumper for mock-up just to make sure everything fits well, but there will be a new bumper being ordered for this Nova. We are going to do the same thing, take off the doors itself. You could see these doors, they're dented on the outside, and then even on the inside of these doors, they have major dents in them, so realistically, they're not even a good candidate for door skins, which we do sometimes. So with the Novas, you really have, 3 options. You can keep your original doors, you could put door skins on the doors itself, or you can buy a full brand new aftermarket door. And we were happy with the 70 Nova we did with the aftermarket door. So we're going to go ahead and just follow that same process and use brand new doors for this Nova, knowing the condition of the inner door structure. As you can see now, I got the jig rolled under the Nova, and what we're going to start doing is slowly lowering the Nova on the jig. We're going to leave the wheels unlocked on the jig itself, and as we're coming down, checking our clearances and everything, we'll go ahead and just adjust the jig forward, back, left, right. This Nova jig works really good on how I have my bars, that my jig points basically come down where they set on the rockers and they set on the front subframe side pieces, those big torque box areas. So once the Nova gets on the jig itself, we can unstrap and basically remove the lift. We're not worried about the car falling off because it's holding it on there. And then we could start slowly adjusting, pulling, and prying. What I'm doing right now, I'm just moving out the front torque boxes on the front subframe mounts on the Nova. They were just a little bit tight, not the end of the world. We're talking less than 1/8 of an inch, but that was just to get the Nova to drop down on them. I do build the jigs a little bit too tight sometimes, which is not the end of the world, but now you could see the Nova sit on the jig. There's one spot on the rocker in the back, that same thing, the bar was set on the rocker lip and didn't come down, so we left that one arm on there, and then we were able to pull the arm by hand back out and get the Nova set on the ground. You could see I have 4 straps on each corner of this Nova, pulling it tight down on the jig, making sure all my jig points are fit up against the same spots that were on the other Nova builds. That's verifying everything on this car is straight, and we really didn't have to move any mounts. Everything fit and dropped on this Nova really well, which is a great sign for future Nova builds, being that this jig has only had a few Novas on it, and we did redo the jig in the last year or so, like I said, to lift up the jig and make it higher. It's too tough climbing underneath the jig and trying to work at that point. So we did a revamp of the jig, and I'm very happy with it. You could see when we get a new car on there how it does speed up the whole process. So what we're going to do now, we're going to remove the mounts, remove the straps. Everything's tacked on this car in the areas that we know we might be keeping. We'll pull everything off, and we're going to go ahead and start doing a wrap up on this video, and we'll take a look at what we got.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the intro on this 69 Nova. As you can see, the Nova's behind the shop door and it's closed, and there's a big pile of parts in front of me. So I did forget to record the outro video for the intro, and already started and about finished with the second cut down video on this car. So you get a little sneak peek on what to expect on this car. We are gonna cut a lot of metal off of it, or we already did cut a lot of metal off of it. When the owner dropped this car, that was the plan. As you saw in the walk around, the car was really rough, so we did expect that. So the car is about ready to be sandblasted. I'll just go through and edit this video that we're doing right now, finish up on that one, and then we will edit the second round of videos. So stay tuned. That video should be out pretty shortly. So if you like this kind of stuff, please check out our Facebook page, Cartridge Classic Cars. Please like, comment, subscribe to YouTube videos. It really does help us out, and it's something free you can do to just help support the channel. We really appreciate it. On this video, as you could see, we started out, we opened up with a finished, almost a finished Nova, and then we have a Nova, this one, the 69, that has just come in the shop, so you can kind of get the difference on what the car looks like and what it could become. I have a feeling that this car, hopefully, like any build, when we progress and get better, that this 69 Nova is actually going to look even better than that 70 Nova. But stay tuned. There's going to be some different parts, like I said, going on this car. We're already making good progress on the car, so we'll have another video out shortly. I'm Rick from Cartridge Classic Cars, and we'll see you next time.